Hello everybody and welcome back to another Rise of Myth Cthulhu deep dive strategy guide. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Shaman character. I personally love this character, it's my favourite in the entire game. It's great in the solo experience and it's also very fun to play cooperatively. It's very flexible in its way that it plays for that, so it makes it a great character to have in either composition that you want to go with. You have a unique mechanic which can let you put out some really silly numbers, but we're going to dive into all of that when we get into the class relic. So without further ado, let's talk about what this character can do. Our class relic is the Totem of Power. It gives us 12 health and 9 sanity. These are both reasonable pools for us to play with, and with upgrades we can obviously get this up quite high. You get the upgrades by using your progress points that you'll accumulate throughout playing different runs, and then when you restart you have the progress points that you can improve your character. Taking the extra sanity is obviously really great on this character, and I'll explain why in just a moment, and additional health can give you a little bit more runway so that you don't get beaten up just a little bit too early into the run. The Totem of Power has an ability that lets you lose a sanity and you gain an astral, and it gives a limit of 2 astrals per character. Let's answer that immediate question: what is an astral? An astral are these blue markers. Certain cards will say astral X on them. When you gain an astral, it just sits in front of you, and whenever you play cards that would deal attack or give you defense, you can increase that number by 1 per card. So let's say I played an attack card and I got an astral, I get +1 damage on that card. If I then play a defense card, I can get +1 defense on that card as well. Astrals are very powerful to get to silly numbers on your cards that you aren't normally able to get to. However, this power has a drawback. If you have them at the start of your next turn, the first thing you do is you do astral discards. So the first cards you would draw, they get discarded instead, and that goes straight into your energy. So you lose control over your turns, which can make it a very smooth brain deck if you'd like it to be, where then you just go, well, the energy's already been paid for me, I'll just play these other cards in my hand. However, if you are playing solo or cooperatively, some of your players may prefer it if you actually know how and what you're going to be doing during your turn. You can give astrals to allies through certain cards, but make sure you check with them before you do it, because it can be super trolly when you make them discard their best card for an astral discard because they have no way of getting rid of their astrals. Our sanity pool of 9 is what I'd consider quite reasonable, but we do have to keep in mind that this class relic power is very impactful, and it also costs us sanity to use. So if we want to get the most out of this, we are going to have to make sure in our rewards that we start choosing various things to regain our sanity. We do have some abilities in our kit which we'll talk about when we get into the main deck, but keeping an eye on that sanity so that we can use this Totem of Power whenever we need to, especially in the earlier stages of the game, as that extra damage is going to be absolutely crucial for allowing you to steamroll a lot of the early content and get your deck strong as possible before you get to the mid game. Let's talk about the insanity effect. With the Shaman, the first astral discard each round gets -1 energy. If you have any of these tokens in play at the start of your turn, you discard cards into your energy and you basically lose control of them, but you'll also get 1 less energy for the first one. This can be quite bad if you end up discarding a high energy cost card and going ahead and just losing energy for the sake of having these astral tokens. We don't really want to be insane on this character unless we have reliable ways of getting rid of all of our astral before the end of our turn, and there's ways to build the deck, and it's actually my preferred way of playing the deck, especially in solo. But I guess to explain all of that, it's probably a good idea if we get into the basic deck. For the Shaman, we have 6 unique cards, and the remaining cards are duplicates of the ones we already have, so I'll just go ahead and flip these over for you. We'll start with the attacks and then we'll go on to our defensive cards. Our first one is Spear Strike. It's an attack 2 for 2 energy. If you have 2 or more astrals, you get to inflict stun and regain a sanity. This is really powerful, but it is a little bit tricky to get off based on the fact that you need to have enough energy to gain the 2 astrals. But what you can do with this is use your Totem of Power to trade that sanity that you're going to get back off of the Spear Strike, play another card that will give you an astral, and then you can go ahead and use this. The stun counter basically means that when you put it onto an enemy, you get to choose who that enemy targets. That's very powerful in multiplayer, as you can then control the flow of the battle and make sure that the player that's then being targeted has some defense. In solo play, stun acts the same as vulnerability, so then you get plus damage when you attack them. When you have 2 astrals with this card, you are attacking for 4 for 2 energy, inflicting a stun and regaining a sanity, which means it's absolute insane value for a card that starts in your beginning deck. And it always discards for 2 energy, so this is a really great card. Next up, we have the 1 energy Creeping Flight card, which is a melee attack. It's astral. It's attack 1, astral 1. So when you play this, you attack for 1, and then you gain an astral. So this is going to be part of how you're going to build up those astrals to do the bigger spear strikes at the start of the game. So you can sort of imagine you use your Totem of Power, gain an astral, you use Creeping Flight. This will attack for 2 for 1 energy because you already have an astral. Then you'll spear strike for 4, regain a sanity, and stun. And this is actually incredible because you're getting 1 energy for 2 damage on this card, and then you're also setting up your next card for some more astral shenanigans. So you can see very, very quickly how in that turn we've effectively dealt 6 damage, and if we've got another card to follow up on, we get the extra damage point from the stun if we're playing in solo, and then we also get the astrals. We could be like dealing 8 with just our basic deck. Creeping Flight is a pretty good card. It does drop off later on because there'll be cards that are much more efficient at giving you astral, and being able to only discard this for 1 energy can be a little bit challenging. But in terms of like starting the game out, this is a great card. It can be a little bit depressing to just pay 1 energy to play this as your starting play, but when that tends to happen, you do always have the option of using the Totem of Power to give you that first astral. Next up, we have the Wolffangs, also 1 energy. It's an attack 1, inflicts bleed 1, and then you discard 1 astral. And this is kind of like the bread and butter of the Shaman. This is the training wheels. Effectively, you gain all the astral, you take advantage of all of the bonuses, and then you get rid of it so you never have to pay the piper when it comes around. Being able to take the advantage of the astral, because you do the effect in order. So if we went ahead and used our Totem of Power, used our Creeping Flight, we'd have 2 astral, and we've already dealt 2 damage. We can then play this. This would deal 3 damage because we use our astrals to pump the damage. We then get to put the bleed on, and then we'll discard 1 of our astrals. Really, really great card and is useful throughout the entirety of the run. Again, I'm always a bit funny about cards that only discard for 1 energy because it takes away a lot of the choice of playing your better cards. For example, if you then want to play Spear Strike, I really don't want to discard 2 of these to play Spear Strike, which is generally the case with 1-cost cards. So it's something to keep in mind, especially as you're choosing rewards, how many 1 costs you're putting in your deck versus 2 costs. 2 costs are generally great because they always discard 1, you can play another card, or you can play 2 1-cost cards, which is very, very powerful. Next up from our defensive options, we have Repositioning, which is defense 2 for 2 energy, so not great ratio. We're generally looking for 2 points of stats for every 8 point of energy we spend. This inflicts prison on up to 2 enemies, so we get to put 1 prison on each of those enemies with any condition. This can be a little bit tricky to start the game with. For example, we could play it after we've used our Spear Strike, but we probably spent all of our energy getting to 2 astrals and then playing this, so it's unreliable. Wolffangs, again, we've probably played stuff to gain astrals and inflicting that bleed, and then we get to put prison on. It's, for me, this mostly discards for 2 energy in a lot of cases. Of course, it can help prevent a little bit of early damage, but this is not something you really want in your deck if you're playing solo too late into the game. You can increase the defense you gain from playing this card with astrals, which can make it a little bit more bearable on the exchange rate that you're getting, but I like this more in multiplayer when somebody else, like the sorcerer, can be putting on different debuffs onto the enemies, and then you can get them with prisons. And then using the stun mechanic, which is quite prolific in the Shaman deck, you can then put all of the attention onto you to take advantage of your defense. Next up, we have another astral card, the Dematerialization. It's 2 energy, but it discards for -1 energy. So when we discard this, we only get 1 energy from it. It's a cooperative card, which means we can play it on other players. So normally with a cooperative card, when you play it, it costs 1 additional energy, and it costs the player that you're targeting 1 sanity. So cards that you choose to play for other players are really, really expensive, and you probably don't want to be doing it unless it's an emergency. Cooperative allows you to avoid the extra cost, which then means that you retain the initial value proposition of what the card is to what your resources are. And what's interesting with this one is it's defense 2, and it gives astral 1, so you can then give that benefit over to your teammates. So you can imagine a seer suddenly playing a bunch of attack cards with astral 1 and absolutely slicing and dicing all of the ghoulies and basically just leaving a trail of bloody corpses behind you. Again, always check with your other players if they are okay receiving the astral, and do explain to them what the astral mechanic is. It's not always the case that everybody knows the mechanics of every other character, so you probably are going to have to explain what that is rather than let people find out when they go to draw their cards and then you see them throwing out their uncommon reward card and then getting really, really upset. Lastly, we have Spirit Trap. Spirit Trap is a 2 energy attack and defense 1, and it gives us astral 1. Again, this is something you have to consider with astral, is it will choose either the attack or defense. We won't get +1 attack and +1 defense for our astral. With 1 astral, this is actually pretty good. You're getting 3 points of stats for 2 energy, which is pretty good. You're also getting the astral. It always discards for 2 energy. It trails off massively in the later stages of the game. it's just 1 attack and 1 defense is generally not that strong, but being able to discard it to actually play your common and uncommon rewards makes it a reasonable card early, and it's not the worst thing to have in your deck by the time you get to the end of the game. Because, for example, we can discard a Spirit Trap to then comfortably play a Creeping Flight into Wolffangs and feel pretty good about it. Next up, we're going to be talking about class items. Now, class items you don't get by default in this game unless you take an upgrade for it. So I'll just go ahead and show you the progress card again. You can see on here that we can begin the game with a random class item. If we spend more progress points, we can choose specifically which class item we want, which is great if you're playing in multiplayer and you guys already have builds in mind. The other way to get it is when you have single player, or you're playing solo, you get access to this card. It's a double-sided card. I'll start on this side. The starting boost says that you get a random class item, your maximum starting health gets +2, and you get to replace 2 of your starter cards with 2 random common cards. So your deck improves early, you get more survivability, and you get the class item completely for free, which makes it great when you're learning this character and getting used to the ins and outs. You'll get to play around with some more of the reward cards, which means that you're going to learn more about this character faster when you're playing. For the more daring player or the more experienced player, the long path is probably the preferred choice. You get a random class item, then you get no other benefits. When you defeat a servant level enemy, you get an uncommon card instead of a common card, and that is actually huge because we encounter our first servant level enemy in solo play at encounter 5, and that means that we start to get a much better deck quicker, especially if you're playing a 2-act run. This is the go-to that you want to be using. It'd be quite hard to do starting boost when there are so many uncommon cards that you could be taking off of the wrong path. Now that we know how we're going to get one of these class items, we're going to go ahead and take a look at them. So we have the Mantle of Protection. The Mantle of Protection says that if we have no astrals at the end of the turn, we gain defense 2, and we get to discard our conditions. This is pretty strong, just getting defense 2 for no reason if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is acquiring astrals, taking advantage of all of their benefits, and then disposing of them. And then we also get to remove anything like bleeds or any other conditions that may have befallen us. It's pretty strong. It's defense 2 for 0, and I really like that. However, if you are running into troubles with your rewards but you're not getting any ways to get rid of those astrals, you may find that this card just ends up sitting in front of you and doing nothing. So you kind of have to build around it. And then defense 2 in the later stages of the game versus what other class items can do, this can feel like it trails off a little bit. But it is fantastic and quite safe, especially if you are new to the class. Just being able to get 3 stats is always very, very strong. Next up, we have the Crimson Eye. At the end of each round, if we've been damaged, we regain 1 sanity. This one's kind of hard because you don't really want to get punched in the face. It's a question of how much do you want to trade for sanity. Now, we do have a larger health pool than we do a sanity pool, and we are using our sanity pools to gain astrals. So there's definitely an argument to be made to try and set up enough blocks so that you just take 1 damage and you can effectively swap 1 health into a sanity. I don't like this because I prefer to take other forms of sustain and not let the ghoulies punch me in the face in order to get anything out of it. So this one I'm less fond of. The Owl Feather is great. If you're wounded or insane, at the end of your turn you get to discard an astral for free. This can make it a lot more easy to manage getting rid of those astrals before it comes around to paying for them. Especially we have things like Wolffangs where we can get rid of 1 astral and then we can use this to discard the other one. It's important to note that this only does something if you're wounded or insane, so you kind of have to put yourself in that state, and we don't want to be insane and have astrals. This kind of helps with that quite a bit because we get to get rid of our astrals a lot more consistently. So if we are playing very aggressive with our Totem of Power, Owl Feather is great for allowing us to then get rid of it at no additional cost. Lastly, we have the Ritual Bowl. The Ritual Bowl is very, very good. Your astral cards gain cooperative, which then means you can play them for other players for no additional cost, and you can give them the astral tokens. If you have not played cards for another character by the end of combat, you regain 1 sanity. This is just free sustain that you can get by not playing cooperative. So if you are playing solo, for example, this card is less effective because the main draw for it is that you get to play all of your cards for other players and then grant them the benefits of astral, even though they won't have a way of getting rid of them. This just effectively gives you a sanity back every turn, which directly lines up with the Totem of Power. So we've effectively just gained a free way of getting our first astral each turn, which massively improves how much our cards are giving us in terms of stats. With the exception of Crimson Eye, I think all of these are good. I'm a huge fan of the Ritual Bowl and Owl Feather, but I also think the Mantle of Protection definitely has a place and is a fun card to play around with. Next up, we're going to take a look at the reward cards. As always, I'm not going to go through all of them. We're just going to take a look at 3 from each reward tier and just talk a little bit about them and how we can build out our Shaman. The first card we're going to take a look at is Return. It's a 1 energy skill that lets us draw 1 card, so it immediately replaces itself. We regain a sanity. This is great because we're probably spending sanity to get Totem of Power. Then we get to choose to gain an Astral 1 or discard Astral. So this is actually really good as we get around to choosing to dump all of our Astral at the end of the turn. It can be a little bit tricky because you probably want to draw the card at the start of the turn, and then you don't really want to be discarding Astral before then, but you can use this just to gain Astral, so we could in theory go Totem of Power, Return, this draws a card, we regain that sanity, and then we can gain the other Astral, giving us Astral 2, immediately allowing us to go off and start punching silly numbers at the opponent. This is a great card. I'm a huge fan of this. Next up, we have the Great Grizzly. The Great Grizzly is a free energy card that only discards for 2 energy because of the -1 blue flame. This is a melee attack defense card. It's attack 2 and defense 2, so we're not really getting what we want for stats on this. We're a little bit under. However, we get to put stun on up to 2 enemies. So this in multiplayer allows us then to control who is coming after which player. So if we play this, we can give ourselves Astral 2, which then means we can just dump a bunch of defense effects on us and gain a massive amount of defense and then basically pull all of the attention onto ourselves. Or if we are feeling particularly nasty, we can push all of that away onto the detective who decided to be on your team. And it's not your fault they decided to be a hero, even if they didn't volunteer for it, and you gave them Astral and then you stunned the targets to then put them targeting the detective. It'll all work out. Great Grizzly is a pretty good card, especially if you already have the Astral, and then you can be, for example, attack 2, defense 4, or it could be attack 4, defense 2 with double stun. I like this card. This is a good card, especially at common level. Lastly, we're going to take a look at Hunting. Hunting is a 2 energy melee attack that attacks for free, and then you get to discard an Astral to add attack 1. Now, because of the ordering of this, we can use that Astral to increase our attack damage. So if we have 1 Astral, we get attack for 4, then we can discard that Astral to attack for 5. Seems pretty solid for a 2 energy common reward card. If we have 2 Astrals, we get to get rid of one of them, and then we get to attack for effectively 6. What I really like about this is, again, when you use Owl Feather, you can then dump the Astral. We've already used this to get rid of an Astral, so it's getting rid of half of the Astrals that we need to make sure we don't have at the start of our turn. It's a good part about management. It gives you really good damage output as well, as we're probably in most cases getting at least 5 damage out of this, which puts it over what we'd want to spend for energy. So this is a really good card. Next up, we're going to take a look at the uncommon cards. Now, these are going to scale quite quickly in power level. We have Home, which is a 0 energy card, so we can always play this, and if we discard it, we do gain an energy, so that's all upside. It's an attack and defense card. It's attack 1 and defense 1. If you have Astrals, you get to draw a card. If you don't, you gain an energy. So you can play this for attack 1, defense 1, gain an energy. That's kind of a little bit under what you want to be doing with this card. Particularly, you want Astrals in order to boost up one of these stats that you want to be using, and then drawing a card for effectively 0. But in a pinch, you can just use this to gain an energy and get attack 1, defense 1 off from the go. But I think that's not playing the card correctly. It's a pretty good card, and it's basically infinite value at 0 energy. So it's obviously not actually infinite value, but if you go by the scale that I generally look at, which is 2 points of stats per energy, 0 in theory just implies that it's infinite value, which is not the case. But this is a really, really good card for keeping your resources flowing or allowing you just to play more cards in your hand. Next up, we have Spiritual Escape. This is a 1 energy card. It's a melee attack. We get to discard our conditions and our Astrals. That's all of them. It's attack free, regain 1 sanity. So this is a great way to finish out a turn, dumping all of those Astrals and gaining a sanity back, especially if we're aggressively using Totem of Power, which we can kind of get away with because this class has quite a bit of sanity sustain. But really, really good card overall, and it lets us control the drawbacks that we're going to have to face. If we play this last, we get some attack free, we gain our sanity back, and then we don't have to worry about Astrals. Then we're going to take a look at our defensive card, well, one of the many that we could get, and this is 1 energy last resort, and this is defense free. Sorry, I've got the Papa Roach song going through my head as I say this, so I'm trying not to sing that out, but this is defense free. If you're wounded, add defense 2, so we're getting 5 points of defense for 1 energy, which is great, and we regain a health, and this can help us get out of that dangerous wounded status. It's a good card. It gives you a ton of stats and additional benefits if you're in a bad position already, and of course you can increase the amount of defense that you're getting off this card by using your Astrals. Next up, we're going to take a look at the rare cards. So you get one of these for defeating the Great Old One, and when you go into Act 2, they are hard to get, but they definitely give you a massive power boost when you get these in your deck. The first one is the Wendigo avatar. So this is a free energy card. It discards for 2 energy because of the -1 blue flame. It's a melee attack, attack 8, coup de grace, regain 2 health or 2 sanity. 8 attack is a lot. It's closer to 10 when you have astrals. So 10 attack is just gigantic, and then you can regain on your stats, and you're effectively gaining net sanity if you're using your totem of power, and then you get your Wendigo avatar, and you just go ahead and increase your sanity by more than you spent, so you're at net positive on this. Really strong, solid card. High attack numbers are always good to have. Next up, we have the Spiritual Fire, 1 energy permanent skill, so when we play this, we just leave it in front of us for the rest of the encounter, and then at the end of the fight, it gets shuffled back into the deck. This permanent skill says at the start of your turn, wounded characters regain 2 health. This is incredible, especially when you've got a whole team set up. It's less good if you are playing solo. Sure, there are times where you can just then effectively keep giving yourself +2 health to then get out of wounded range, but if you have a team of people, this is really great for keeping people topped up. I like this card. This is a very strong cooperative card. Lastly, we have Orientation. Orientation is a 1 energy skill card that lets you draw 2 cards and an extra card for each astral you have. So if we have 2 astral, we draw 4 cards for 1 energy, which is absolutely disgusting. This is almost cheating how good this card is. Now, we do have to keep in mind that we've probably paid a sanity and played another card before we've got around to playing this, but overall, being able to draw 4 cards for 1 energy is absolutely ridiculous. Lastly, before we wrap this one up, I do want to talk about this card. This is another class relic you get access to. If you beat the game on Nightmare mode, you get to unlock this so that when you start increasing the difficulty and adding some homebrew rules, you can use this relic instead of the standard totem of power. The Astral Necklace gives us additional HP and additional sanity, and of course we can take upgrades on top of that. And this one has the effect of at the start of your turn, you can gain Astral 1 and you can lose a health or 1 sanity. So you get to choose which of the resources you want to pay, and it gives that limit of 2 astrals per character. Overall, very powerful card, especially then when you get to choose which of these 2 pulls, and it's probably going to come out of your HP so we can avoid ever being insane and having to deal with our drawback. So that's about going to wrap it up for the deep dive into the Shaman. Do you have any tips for other players that are playing? Do you think I missed anything, or do you have any questions? Please leave them in the comments down below. We always love to hear from you. But from now, we're going to wrap it up here. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.